guys, how's it going? My name is Gareth Davies. I'm a former Sunderland University design student turned graphic designer. I now live in Dubai and I run a design and innovation company called AcidWorks. And Manny, Gurpreet and the rest of the team kindly asked me to talk a little bit about what I did after uni, what my journey was, where I've worked, and the types of projects that I've done. I'm also going to talk a little bit about what I do today, my views on the industry, and maybe, if I've got time, a few potential words of advice and things like that as well. So I hope you enjoy the talk. I'll try and keep it as short as possible. So without further ado, alrighty, so last year I realized that I've actually been in the design game for 20 years. It certainly doesn't feel like it. Hopefully it maybe doesn't look like it either, but it's true. So I was actually at university when I did my first piece of design work. It was for a friend's sort of nightclub dance music party in a club called Chambers, which is just next door to the cinema and bowling alley in Sunderland, and screwed up all of the CMYK settings and resolutions and stuff like that. But it was the first piece of work I ever got out there, and I've been doing it ever since. So I thought it'd be really nice to put some different slides together, one slide for each year, and call out a particular piece of important work that I did. And also kind of track that to the industry, and also my skills, how have they grown, how have my sort of passions maybe changed, what sort of spread of work do I do, and how does that match the industry and how the industry's changed. As we all know, it's got more digital. Design has become this big, huge thing compared to just doing posters, illustration, a bit of branding, a bit of advertising, typography back in the day, which we still do and is massively important now. So it's called 20 Years of JPEGs and Occasional Other Formats, Graphic and Digital Design Works by myself. So without further ado, I just wanted to kind of just remind you all that we all sort of had to start somewhere. This is a picture of me back in 1998. It's kind of year zero. It's the year before I did anything at all. I think they are the new G4 Power Max, if I believe, that the uni got, and they were like super cool. And this is when I first met Manny and Gurpreet and those guys. And yeah, I was young, kind of had a very active social life, and I really look back at those times and wish I could go back to just having that level of or that window of opportunity to learn and to improve my skills at such a young age. So please take the opportunity to do that right now. It's a little fun image of one of the guys, Ian, goofing around. Yep, thanks for that, mate. So the first piece of digital design work I officially ever did, although this wasn't actually in the public eye, thank God for that, was down at St. Peter's, and we learned how to use, what was the software called? Painter, Photoshop, I think Quark Express maybe, and we had to do one of each, one export of each, one delivery of each, using each of those design packages. So I think this one was Macromedia Freehand. That was it. And this was just a journey of how I go to school. So this was, I'll go to university. So that was my first thing I think I ever did in my first year at uni. This was Painter. This was the desktop publishing program. I mean, it's just pretty tragic, right? But like I said, we all got to start somewhere. And for some weird reason, I decided to put my head, I think, on Dennis Rodman, the famous basketball player's body, try and make my skin look somewhat matching, and sort of do it all. Don't ask why I did that. Anyway, that was my first ever project. So the nightclub flyer that I talked about, the poster, this was indeed the first ever piece of work that I ever did. Now, if you look closely in the public eye, if you look closely, you might see some really low resolution. You'll see lots of drop shadows. It's like, Photoshop, let's do drop shadows. That's what you do when you first start using it, right? We ended up giving it to the printers to print in CMYK because I set it all up in RGB. I basically designed it in my bedroom with my friend Ross, who was one of the DJs and ran the event. And but yeah, it was good. It was a good student night. I think it was on Thursday nights. It was indeed, as you can see on the flyer. And that was where my journey started as a graphic designer, kind of officially. This wasn't in the public eye either. However, it was really important to me because in my second year of uni, we actually did a graphic design course, which we had to choose a typeface. And I think I randomly pulled out of the Helvetica, which was almost like, fate, right? Because Helvetica is obviously one of the most famous fonts in the world, especially for graphic designers. And for me personally, it was something that I was always really into. A lot of the music CDs that I was buying at the time heavily used Helvetica. It was almost like a kind of a blessing, like a gift from God to send me down this path. And I think I got top marks in the class for that. Donna, thank you for that. I'm not sure if she's still at the uni, but I know she has been there for quite a few years afterwards. So hi, Donna, if you're listening. So yeah, all good. In 2001, I did a year's placement down in London, which was absolutely fantastic because at that point in life, I didn't really have a great direction of what I wanted to do. I knew I was good at graphics. I'd always been good at art at school, but I didn't really apply that to any sort of major sort of outlet, right? So I started to do it with some of these graphic design projects, but this is where that really kind of solidified. And being a Sunderland lad, through and through, born in Sunderland, lived in Sunderland until I was sort of 30, apart from this year in London. It was my first time I'd been to the big city, and it just blew my mind. It was amazing. Met tons of good friends down there. I worked for a magazine company, as you can see, and I was like the spare pair of hands who could do things in Photoshop and do little illustrations and fix all of the professional illustrations that they were getting done. So they would, maybe have the rough edges smoothed out and all of that. The friends that I made down there are still friends today from a professional perspective, from a personal perspective. And that really brought me back to the Northeast, full of energy and full of confidence. And people will probably say, what's the word? A bit of arrogance. And just thought I could sort of dominate the graphic design industry from then on, right? But the reality is it wasn't quite that easy. I did start being inspired by the energy of London. I wanted to start a new DJ night myself. You might see this, you will see it through my work. I was very passionate about dance music, DJing, and the blend of graphic design between the two different art forms, music and design as well. So it just kind of very naturally merged a little bit too much. I think I might have focused on it a little bit too much with regards to the design of it. But it was a great journey to go through. This is some photographs of the parties that we used to put on and the branding that we did. We got T-shirts. We teamed up with a really cool clothing store in Sunderland, which had recently opened, called 11. It's a shame to see that's no longer around. Do check out Aphrodite. If friends of mine run that, you might be aware of that. So but the brand was cool. We liked it. We hung those giant boards on the corners of Sonatas down on Homeside. So if you know Sonatas, you probably don't want to go in there for a beer these days. But there was these giant things hanging and swinging around. If they fell off, they would have literally killed someone. So, back then probably wasn't quite as tight on the old health and safety. But anyway, moving on. As you can see, I sort of quite rapidly got into more music-based design. And by 2003, my skills had really started to solidify. And actually, a lot of that came through my year in London because I was just doing graphic design solid pretty much for a year. And I kind of got to this point. And I was always sort of fascinated by typography, imagery. As a young person, I was still am massively into video games, gadgets, technology. So I've always been into kind of blending all of those different passions into creating great results. Something that I wasn't necessarily quite as passionate about was doors and patios. But I got my first ever proper design job was in 2004, and I went to work for a manufacturing company in Peterlee to do all their graphic design and their packaging. So they would make these windows and doors and whatnot that you'd find in B&Q and Homebase, etc., Wix, and we do all the packaging for that. So that was all good. Very fortunately, I got asked by Manny actually to come and do a little bit of tutoring at the university, because I was so passionate about the importance of myself getting work experience in London that by this point I'd actually started a small design agency down at St. Peter's in the St. Peter's Gate building, which is next door to St. Peter's campus. And I said to Manny, we got to give the students the work experience. It's so important, even if, they just come into the office for a week and they answer the telephone, do a little bit of design work. It's great experience for them and it opens them up, right? So through that conversation, Manny actually asked me to come in and do a bit of tutoring to get the students trained up in Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, I think, back then. And that sort of bled into helping on a few different modules and even sitting on the final degree classifications and helping to sort of judge and support the students and mark their degrees from then onwards. So yeah, I was working down at St. Peter's, had my little agency. This is some of actually the first time the students had officially used Photoshop and Illustrator. And this is some of the results that you can see. It's absolutely stunning, by the way. And I was speechless at the results that they came back with. More music stuff. By this point, I was doing quite a lot of things for record labels, 12-inch vinyl records, and flyers for parties and everything. So I was very much engaged in the music industry. It was where my passion was, and I was doing quite a lot of work as an independent designer who ran my own business. That's all of the record sleeves and the 12-inch vinyls through on the floor. In 2007, I got an offer to lead the team, the design team, at a small to medium-sized agency just across the river, down by the Bonded Warehouse, which I think is now unfortunately recently closed down. Hopefully you're getting a lot of Sunderland cues in all of this. I'm still passionate about my hometown. So, I met a guy called Stu who was into this thing called innovation, and it was all about like looking back and knowing what's happened in the past and looking forward and being able to sort of like think of really smart, intelligent stuff and how does that maybe implement into design and pull in design requirements. It was all like didn't know what was going on with all this stuff. I was just into creating like flyers and posters and logos and stuff like that. But that started to open my eyes to sort of larger design and creative and technology and innovation thinking. And this was actually a really nice graphic that we did for kids in school to show them where technology came from and, things like the first ever computer memory in 1947, the first ever mobile telephone in 1946, believe it or not. YouTube 2005, PlayStation 94, as well as a few fun things in there, such as England won the World Cup. And Rufus, the design agency that we worked for at the time. Moving on, we jumped to 2008, and this is where I'd really started to establish a little bit more of a reputation in Sunderland. And really, my dream was to bring great design work into Sunderland and the businesses of Sunderland and the city centre as well, specifically the city centre, because unfortunately, as we know, it's always kind of struggled to have that sort of real great experience compared to places like Newcastle, London, Manchester, and I was very passionate about trying to do that. Along that journey, I got asked by the National Glass Centre to start creating some of their brochures and their artwork, and that was really nice because it was just really beautiful work and spend a lot of time doing that. I then kindly got asked to design the logo for End Clothing, which I'm sure some of you guys get your fly sneakers and badass stuff from. I still do as well. Shout out to Ali, Dave, and John, and all the guys who run that. I'm still friends with them all now. And they actually opened a small kind of sister store when End was just a little tiny sort of shop that sold lots of Lyle and Scott, Adidas, Nike sneakers. And And they opened a side store called End Hunting Lodge, which was all about really high-end, like Japanese, American, imported high-end men's products. So they'd sell those like hiking boot things for like 800 quid and stuff like that. And we wanted to create like a hunting lodge style feel. So that was the logo that I did, and here's just a few pics of it. You might have walked down the street in Newcastle a few times. But yeah, the branding was really nice. Nice and simple, and they've now gone on to basically be one of the biggest independent men's retailers on the planet. They've launched a store in London about 2 years ago. They're in Glasgow. They bought the Restore. It was in Newcastle. You guys probably don't even remember the original Restore. Anyway, so they've done fantastically well, and they're a really great example of, what being smart and being on the ball can do. They're all incredibly successful now. And I really, really mean incredibly successful. So well done to those guys. More music stuff. And the reason why this is important as well is because I was basically the creative director for Habit, which was a really cool club night in Newcastle. And they were booking loads of really kind of like knowledgeable DJs back then for in house music. And it was actually a time when house music wasn't quite as popular as it's later become. It was really popular, then kind of it died a bit and indie kicked in, and then it's come back big time. But yeah, we did some really, really great events. The one at the time down in Newcastle Riverside in particular was particularly fun. And this is just a little video of what that looked like. Anyway, we'll move on from that one because it gets a little bit hairy. Shortly after, I lost my job at Rufus because a couple of reasons. The primary one was the banking crisis happened, and it was really difficult to maintain salaries. I moved to Dubai about 5 months later because on my 30th birthday, I went traveling across to Japan, and I stopped off in Dubai, Shanghai, Hong Kong, and in Tokyo, and I had a couple of friends living in Dubai, and I then decided to get a job there. So I started off as my first company was like an events brand activation company, and it was a really tough gig. I only spent a few months there because I just wasn't skilled enough in what I was doing. And obviously came across quite well in my interview. But we did a big, huge stand at the biggest technology conference in the Middle East called GITEX, and I played some part in the early stages of that. That was a little bit of a difficult time, but I then joined a smaller design agency, which I was just getting back to basics and being comfortable in what I could do, and I was there for about 6 months. I then got an offer from a technology, IT, digital consultancy based in the US called Infusion. And I didn't know whether to accept the job or not because I was a bit worried that, but my first job in Dubai didn't work out too well. And I was a little bit worried that, I didn't want to, risk things again. And a friend of mine said, Gareth, just leave your regular design job. You can get a design job anytime. This is a great opportunity. You're into your gadgets, you're into your technology. You are, you're passionate about all of this kind of like innovation stuff. Just give it a try and, we'll see what happens. And it was one of the best decisions I've ever made because it went really, really well. And to this day, Infusion has been a game changer in my career, actually. So you're going to see a few more of the things that we did. But what was great about Infusion is that they blended, they were essentially an IT consultancy that would sell IT staff to banks around the world. That's primarily where their business was coming from. But they were getting more and more opportunities within other types of clients. So this one was actually an innovation lab for the Telegraph in London. So I flew back from Dubai to work there just before Christmas, I think. So it worked out really well. Then I got the train up back to Newcastle for Christmas. But this was all about telling the story of the lifeline of a news story. So from the actual event itself to how it all kind of populates across the print articles, the web, the TV, and kind of tracking all of that, right, throughout the Daily Telegraph's kind of ecosystem. And you could actually control a big screen with your hand. You could place newspapers down on a table and find out the stories that we featured. This one was actually the London riots, but this is a little video you're going to see of the finished work. Cool. So hopefully that looks pretty cool. And often with this stuff, you know, the actual piece of work is the thing, but by the time you brand that, you maybe produce some video shoots, do some photography for it to promote it and kind of present that all nicely, it always comes out looking quite cool, right? So there's ways and means to make it look a little bit better than it was, but it was generally a really fun job, and it was super cool to see how the newsroom, the Telegraph works. Another important project of mine was MetLife Infinity, which was an app that we developed, designed, and ran for probably about a 18-month period, and I essentially creative directed all of that. We initially did the pitch. I created all of the customer journey for our cool sales guy in New York who pitched this to MetLife. And it was all basically about how do you store all of your most important content on our digital devices. So, you know, I got a new phone. I got a new iPhone 11 about 6 months ago, and I lost all my old photos, and I had some like important family pictures on there and stuff like that, right? And it was all about storing all of that really cherished content in a really safe place, and actually being able to send messages to people at certain times, voice recordings, video messages. You know, if you get sick, you know, if you've got something that you know you're not going to recover from, you can send things out when you're in a healthier state, etc. So it was kind of a bit of a deep meaning, but I think it's an app which, unfortunately, it's had a life cycle and it ran for a couple of years, but it never really got the wings behind it that it needed. And an interesting insight in this is because one of the reasons for that is because the client insisted that we launched not just in America, but for phase 2 in Asia. And at the same time, we created a desktop version of the platform as well. But in actual fact, what they needed to do was get the app super slick. And unfortunately, the first release wasn't quite slick enough. However, I actually, one of the reasons why I got promoted in Fusion is because when I was in Toronto working on this, they very kindly flew me over. Toronto's a really cool place, by the way. Go check it out. I said to my boss, the executive creative director, I said, the app's not good enough. Like, they're spending millions of dollars on this. It's not good enough yet. You know, it's all about a beautiful place to cherish and store all of your content and create in there. And if it doesn't look that hot, and if it doesn't work that well, then people just aren't going to, you know, buy into it. And he really respected that. And I was then put back on the project because I was actually in Toronto to work on something else at the time. And then, led it again for about another 4 or 5 months. So this is a little video of you're going to see of the... no, you're not. I've removed it. Okay, no worries. Actually, just give me a sec. I'll see if I can find it. Is it still there? No, it's not. Okay, no worries. There's a cool video. I'll maybe show you guys later. The next project was in 2014, and unfortunately, Infusion in the region had shut down. We're still running around the rest of the world, but I did get asked as a freelancer to still work for them, and we got an opportunity with a big retail conference to partner with IKEA to imagine the future of their customer experience. And this was a really important project for me. It got featured on stage alongside Barbarian Group, who are a super hot digital innovation agency in New York. And this was all about, think of ideas. We can use technology, we can use design, and have a good understanding of sort of customer journeys around the IKEA experience to create the next generation of that. So for me, the reason why I was doing well in this kind of environment, because I've always had a love of design, technology, gadgets, content, video games, motion, 3D, all of that stuff, retail as well, and the sort of the experience of being in a retail store, I've always been really passionate about. So if you blend all of that knowledge together, you can actually unravel a lot of these ideas quite easily. Or at least that's what I sort of found a bit of a knack in being able to do. So we had about 5 showcase ideas for this. IKEA, the first one was about how do you atomize the IKEA experience, which is especially relevant in 2020. How do you make the, sorry, I'm just checking on my time. How do you make IKEA stores more convenient to get to, maybe in your city centre? And how do you move away from this big sort of warehouse approach, especially in 2020, where people just aren't comfortable being surrounded by hundreds of people, right? And, the idea is you create smaller stores with a smaller footprint. You can maybe take a smaller space in the Metro Centre or Newcastle City Centre or Sunderland City Centre, and using the lower cost digital screen technology and the interactivity of it, you can have all of your products on a big, beautiful wall. You can browse, move around. On this one, you can see the lady looking at the full-size lighting. And guess what? Once you've decided, you can tap to pay on your device and get it delivered straight to your door in a couple of days. And in the meantime, you can also get your IKEA hot dog and coffee in the sort of canteen, sort of coffee shop area as well. Another app that we did was how do you help people who aren't very good with interior design to see the sets and the already staged rooms a little bit easier, because they've got all of these beautiful sets designed when you walk around IKEA, but you always just end up grabbing random stuff anywhere, right, when you go around. So you can tell a story of those actual sets, those rooms, and you can list all of the products as being featured. And it can also tell you a story about, hey, that lamp was designed by this guy, and it's got a really beautiful Swedish heritage, and et cetera, et cetera. And you can kind of get guided around the store and buy the items that you need from that collection. And guess what? Again, you can add all of those to your carts if you wish. You can tap and get it sent to the guys in the warehouse who could be potentially already collecting it for you as you go around the store, which is actually what you see on this concept here. So you partner and sync up with a warehouse helper, and they're actually grabbing the stuff off the shelves as you're going around selecting. So that was really great. And this is Peter, my old boss, presenting it in New York.
Cost efficient for them. This idea is just simply about leaning into this idea of micro stores for IKEA, which is kind of like counter, on one level, but the cost of monitor technology, the ability to cover a wall with.
So yeah, I'm conscious of time, so I'll flick through. I joined another digital agency in 2015, actually late 2015. And with my experience in kind of physical digital environments, I've done quite a lot of work in banking now. And we got an opportunity to help a new bank that was going through a rebrand in Riyadh. And we basically had to completely transform their in-branch experience and give people a reason to come back to the branch, to spend more time there, to be able to onboard with products a lot easier, and to generally make the branch investment more relevant. So what you can see here is some of the digital screens that we created on tablets and big tables. You can browse and calculate different loans. You can see how all of the different credit cards and different accounts. And it was actually a really, really great project. We were fortunate that, as I mentioned, it was getting rebranded by Landor at the time. So we had a really fresh new skin and look and feel. But when we walked around this mall, there was that like central, there was basically a little sort of donut shop in here. And I was like, that palm trees, water, that would be a good spot for a bank. And turns out they went for it, right? So that's what it looked like. And it was really cool. And this is a few photographs of the work. So yeah, super good, super good. This is the video with a little bit more information on it. Excuse me, my nose is a bit itchy. So yeah, this is the Arabic gentleman showing all of the people, all of the devices that we built. So you can see the graphics implemented on the screens, and it was super successful. We also implemented a Costa copy in there, so you could come in, you could spend your banking points on a free coffee, on a free sandwich, and it's all about driving people back into the bank rank. So it was a cool project. 2017 was an interesting one. I actually moved away from that company fairly rapidly, and I invested in a small studio apartment here in Dubai, and I built a brand around that. So kind of like a little bit like an Airbnb sort of style. A little bit of a tough year, that one, because the investment stroke aligned with not working too much was a difficult one. But what was actually really, really good from that year as well is I got quite an important project to create all of the front end of the new smart gates at Dubai Airport. So basically, when you go through the check-ins and the immigrations, you can put your passport in, you can put your local ID, and you get through super quick. So I was the team at the time were working on all of the back end of that. How fast does it respond? What happens when it fails? How do you communicate with people in the fastest way possible? And I had to create all the front end of that and the branding around that. So you'll see some of the examples, and it's been a super successful project. It was just me and an emotion designer from London called Ben, who helped me with that. But yeah, I mean, this gets used by hundreds of thousands of people, or actually more than that. Dubai Airport is now, I think, the busiest airport in the world. And this has actually become a really important part of how people move through the airport. I think the percentage of people using this now is maybe sort of 75%. So it's been hugely successful, and it's actually been implemented across all of the terminals in Dubai now. So it's great. And this is a little few shots of what we did. Importantly, it's great to remember that being a graphic designer, we can work out things that doesn't involve a lot of technology. It's like, hey, we need to communicate more about where to put your finger. We don't need to create some complex animation on a screen. Let's just print a sticker and put it over the device, And so that worked really, really well. We designed the uniforms for the staff. Yeah, all super good, super popular. We even did stickers. So when you go through Dubai with your passport, you get a little sticker. So you remember next time you go through, you can use your passport really quickly. So loads of cool little things like that. And there should be a little video on the introduction of the smartphone. So maybe just while that's playing, my role in this was to do the branding. So the logo, choose the typography, and why we choose this font, because it was very clean and it was very modern, and it actually had a very high legibility for people of all different cultures, ages, moving through the airport. But the important thing about this brand was it's actually the motion and how fast everything moved around, which was the brand itself, because we wanted to communicate clarity, precision, and motion and speed in the experience, and that's what we were quite successful to do. All of the illustration work was done by myself. We created a storyboard for this video, which was essentially an illustrator with all of the graphics already nicely done, and then my motion graphics guy then animated all of that stuff, and that's how we sort of attacked a lot of the other work as well, and on the screens in the airport. So that was a really, really good one, and a lot of people seeing that. Moving on, I need to check my time. 2018, I joined to lead the team. Well, I actually joined a new company, one of the top 4 consulting firms in the world, actually called Accenture. And I joined Accenture Interactive as an experience design lead. Lots of interesting stories from that time. One in particular was when I went to lead the team at Etisalat, which is kind of like a Vodafone or a 3. And we had a design team embedded within their organization. So we were designing their websites and their mobile apps and some of their in-store digital work as well. And it was a really tough time. The client was under pressure because the website just wasn't working at the moment. We were implementing an online shopping experience, so you could register for your different plans and your phones through the website. So all that was going on, but there was actually a lot of sort of really challenging things happening around the bigger group, because the IT department was struggling to implement some of the design work that had been previously put through. I'm just working out what I should and shouldn't say here, so I'll be conscious of that. But we had to work out a lot of things basically. And what was actually really great was it was important for me to get back to basics with design and actually start working out how to get the banners working really well. They had to be in English and Arabic. We need to have an image on the left and on the right, and the text would flip based around which language view you were in. Let's start getting the banners really impactful. Let's start getting the product cards designed nicely instead of being too complex. Let's start getting all of our advertising sections designed really nicely and get the customer engaged. So this is why, even in this big world of complex organizational level design, really strong, common sense, logical graphic design, branding, content design, and good UI design is super important, because that was the stuff that just wasn't helping the client because we just weren't focused enough on it. So we got back to basics a little bit, and if you look on their website, you'll see a lot of this. It's actually still in place, so that was really, really good. Almost getting to the end of this, so final one. This is the innovation lab that I built for Accenture, which is in their office in Media City, about 5 minutes drive from where I am now. And it was all about showcasing the latest and greatest experiences and innovations, and having a place where Accenture and clients could come, could collaborate, could do workshops, could test, can learn, and see all of the potential when you blend design and technology and ideas and inspiration together to transform what was actually focused on the travel industry. And we called it the Dubai Tourism Innovation Hub. So on this one, I worked quite closely very closely with a couple of interior design, space design firms. I essentially directed the creative part of all of that. And I think hopefully what you'll see is quite a beautiful end result. And there's a little video here, which is just going to show you how that happened. Awesome. So yeah, you'll see how all of the different types of work that gone into that, from interior design to hardware procurement, buying all the screens, to actually creating all of the applications, the virtual reality, the branding, the colors, the choosing the fabrics, the actual construction of the place, and orchestrating all of that and making it come out in a very, very finished high-end result. When you've got companies with lots of people kind of, trying to, get their things done, and maybe not quite of the interest of another part of the business. Orchestrating all of that together and getting it through is actually quite a skill. So that's something that I do quite a lot of now. So hopefully you like that. One last thing I'm going to show you is something that we did this year with the same team actually, but I'm now doing this as Acid Works, and where this is a concept bank branch, but we're using Unreal Engine technology which is what you see in all the video games, to really take things to the next level. So let's take a look at this one.
There is a house built out of stone, wooden floors, walls, and window sills, tables and chairs worn by all of the dust. This is a place where I don't feel alone. This is a place where I feel at home.
So yeah, that's been a partnership between my business and Aces of Space, the space design guys. We basically designed all of the interactive screens that you see throughout the video, and they designed obviously the space and then modeled all of that as well. So hopefully you really like that. And finally on this section, you might get an idea of all of those blends of technology and my love of all different types of media, and sort of bringing all of that together. And this is just a nice quote from Shigeru Miyamoto, who is the president, game designer, and producer of Nintendo. I'm sure you all know Super Mario, Donkey Kong, all of those incredible Nintendo games that we all still play today. So he said that the art of science, my role is Ningen Kogaku, which is called human engineering. And translated, that means the art and science of creating magical human experiences. So hopefully that's what we all get to do in this brilliant world of design and digital and technology that is all interconnected now. So I think that's the important thing to remember, and having that passion for all of these different things and being able to kind of weave those together is really cool if you can think about that. So that's the end of this section. I hope it's not took too long. I hope I've got a little bit of time left, but let's check. Thanks very much. Okay, so you've heard a little bit about what I've done like in the past 20 years even. Hopefully that didn't go on for too long. But what am I up to right now? So at the start of 2020, I moved on from Accenture, and I've been thinking about going back to essentially being my own boss, setting up a small business, and doing the stuff that I was doing at these larger organizations, like orchestrating these different businesses and different teams together to deploy great digital work, but from a smaller nucleus in the middle. And I then met my now business partner, Mark, who was actually an independent consultant down at one of the airlines in Abu Dhabi, or the airline down in Abu Dhabi. I'm sure you can maybe work that out. Man City, as a clue. So we met over a coffee, and we shared a similar, ethos. It was all about how do we become more than the sum of our parts. We don't just want to be Gareth the freelancer anymore. We want to have a voice. We want to have a platform. We want to do that with a bit of sort of a bluster and a bit of energy and make a bit of noise in the region, right? I think in general, design has become a little bit stale, especially at the larger scale versions of it. Big companies are all doing design and design thinking, and they've got digital studios, and everyone's doing websites, products, apps, workshops, service design, all of these things. My dog is getting involved. Come here. Do you want to come over? Spoiling my video. Let me grab him. So I'll try and concentrate as best I can at this. at this point. So, so we want to kind of do something that had a bit more, and it would get energy back into the industry. Start getting passionate, skilled designers back into the industry. Celebrate them. Don't let them just be absorbed by these big organizational groups. And really, and have design at the forefront of the conversation. Let's judge our work by how badass it is, by how awesome it is. Let's not get bogged down by the politics of organizational talk and all of the stuff that goes on in the background, which impacts the work that we do. That's just the stuff that I was tired of. It's the organization, it's the people inside of it. They're all sucking on the corporate teat, right? And I don't care about that. I just want to do great work, right? So that was my approach. And clients just want great work. They don't want to deal with all of your crap, all of the stuff you've got going behind the curtains. They want to deal with that, right? They just want great work. So let's just do great work. And that's kind of what it's all about. So we want to do that with a bit of an attitude, with a bit of a positivity, do it great. And that's what we do. So orchestrating the best independent partners and businesses out there in the region, around the world. We're using, for example, Graham, who's another ex-student of Sunderland Design School. He's now in New York as a freelance illustrator and designer, working magic over there, and he has been for quite a few years now. Working with Aces of Space, the interior design agency. They're actually based in Antwerp now, but they have an office in Dubai. Working with the motion graphics guy, Ben, in London, who did all of these stuff for the airport that you've seen earlier. Bringing all of these people together remotely and all of those amazing minds and skills and applying it to clients here in the Middle East. Hopefully I'll get the chance to kind of bring a little bit of that back to the northeast of England as well, because I do want to get back there at some point in the future, be a little bit closer to home and the family and all of that. So that's very much in the pipeline. But yeah, things are going good so far. Mark, my partner, is, as I said, is partnered up with one of the airlines. We're looking to bleed into that account quite rapidly and support them a lot. We're getting on board with some of the banks in the region. We're doing hopefully doing digital charity kiosks in Saudi Arabia. There's loads of opportunities coming through, and actually quite a lot of just branding and web work, just fairly straightforward branding and web transformation work, because a lot of businesses, big and small, are just looking to rebrand and take this experience that we've all had during COVID-19 in 2020 to sort of just to reimagine their business and start presenting it better. So we're certainly, from my side of the business, I'm helping them do a lot more of that. Mark's more of a trained service designer, so that's all about really unraveling the initial organizational challenges and opportunities and getting them to a point where it's clearly visible what the actual design work even needs to be. So it's almost like the design thinking before we even get to any design at all. I kind of do a little bit of that, but it's more just sort of like using my my sort of insight into design and art and creativity and tech and sort of just trying to work stuff out. But Mark actually does that very methodically and structurally, which is what's needed in these large organizations when you're dealing with lots of different groups and pillars of the business. So that's a little bit about what we do. Hopefully some of that's been interesting. How am I doing for time? I'm on 6 minutes. I think I've almost took an hour of your time. So I apologize for that, but hopefully it's been useful. I'm going to put my email address down here. And I'm hopefully going to get back and maybe meet you all in person at the university sometime soon. Hope you've enjoyed it. Please reach out. Please let me know if there's any advice or any stuff that I can help share with, whatever it might be. Give us a follow on Instagram as well, because we're kind of posting things on there, and maybe LinkedIn as well. So hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks again to Manny, Capri and the team for asking me to do this. And I will speak to you all and hopefully see you all very soon. Thanks. Bye.